What's up, everybody? It's Gittler. Great to have you back at the Hike House. I know it is tough that we're not going out on all the trips that we generally go out on every summer, but let's learn something. Why don't we? Let's make the best of the situation. So today, I know you guys have been learning a bunch of different stuff on Poco Zoom Crady. Love that name. Today, we're gonna do a couple things, or just one, we're gonna walk through the steps basically of how to start a stove. These Whisperlite stoves that we send on all of our overnight trips, one-nighters, two-nighters. Anytime you go out in the woods for anything longer than a day hike, we're sending one of these fuel bottles and one of these MSR Whisperlite stoves. So many of you who have been on these overnight trips know some of the steps that these entail. Some of you can probably get them started right on your own. But for those of you who have never done this or are curious about it, that's why we're gonna do this. So let's get started. What I generally like to do first is find some sticks kind of right in the area, because I'm gonna clear out and make it kind of, so that if any sparks get on the ground, any fire gets on the ground, it's not gonna set a forest fire. So I generally like to clear out the area where I'm gonna set up my stove a little bit. Doesn't have to be much, just, right like that. And then I generally wanna find a few sticks, right, again, just in the area where you are. And as those of you who have been on overnight trips with Poco know, the counselors, trip leaders will generally, they should, be setting up a little, what they call a kitchen, a little border around where the stove's gonna be, so that everybody knows, a few sticks around, everybody knows not to walk through this area, so we're not knocking over the stove, so we're not, if there's water boiling, we're not knocking over that big pot of boiling water. So that's our kitchen, we have it set up, and then we're going to look into the stove bag. Take a look at the contents in here. You pull this out, it's a Ziploc bag. It's a little pump for the fuel bottle. So what this does, it's gonna go right in here. I generally like to take the top of the fuel bottle and put it in the Ziploc bag, because these are very easy to lose when you're camping. So toss in the bag, don't lose the bag. All right. So we put this in here, kind of, you gotta fit both of these sides in, and then you go ahead and tighten. A little trouble. All right, set this down right here. Eventually, we're gonna give that about 15 to 20 pumps. We'll get there though. Next thing to come out of the bag is the actual stove itself. The stove is gonna connect to the fuel bottle, and that's how we will cook. I'm gonna put this aside for just a second. There are a couple things that I like to set up first before we open up the stove. And the first of those would be the little placemat, stove mat, if you will. You just put this down, the stove eventually will go, or right now, can go right on that, just so that the hot stove is not right up against the dirt and the leaves and catch on fire. All right, put the stove, it sets kind of on a tripod, okay? Same with where the pot of water or whatever you're cooking will sit. You wanna make sure that the outside, place it down, and then we're gonna take this, the end of the little pipeline here is gonna go into a little hole in the fuel pump. Put that in, push it all the way in until the silver is right up against the red. If you can see that, hopefully. And then you're going to loop this little hook right around, and it's gonna hook into this little gray notch, okay? And then it will be connected. Fuel bottle and stove are connected. All right, at this point, your stove is pretty well set up. It's connected, the stove and the fuel bottle are connected. So we're gonna prime the fuel bottle. So we're gonna pump it, again, about 15 to 20 times. We're gonna pump this one, we'll do it at 20.
All right, 20. Now, a properly working stove should now be primed.
One thing before I do light it, I'd like to kind of show you. These stoves, like it's the fuel comes out of the pipeline into this little cup here at the bottom of the stove, and then when it's hot enough, it goes from like a liquid to a gas, and that's how the fire lights. In there, though, occasionally these stoves won't work. Those of you who have been on a camp trip where a stove doesn't work, it can be frustrating. That's why we generally send an extra in case it's not working. But one thing to know is that 98% of the problems that you're going to run into with these stoves is just a jammed pipeline. Something in there is not working right, or the fuel for some reason is not getting from the bottle to the stove. And one thing in the stove, there's like a little needle in here. It'd be a different class where we could walk through, how to take apart a Whisperlite. But if you listen really carefully, I'm gonna shake it up and down, and you'll hear this little jingling, kind of a little bit. And that's actually what can help clear the way for anything that might be, if there's anything backed up along the pipeline. So give it a listen here. So that should be cleaning out, basically, clearing out this little hole that the fuel comes through to get to the stove. So it should be clear now. There are more steps you can do if after that you're still having problems with your stove. But again, that's a different class. So to get it started, I want to make sure it's evenly distributed. I'll have it like this. I'm going to take a sip of water, sorry. Oh, the next thing in here is also a windscreen. We'll actually use this. We can actually put it on now. No, actually, for the sake of demonstration, I'm not going to put that on. We can put it on the end. I'll show you how it's supposed to look. In every stove bag, there should be a lighter. So at this point, you are then ready to get the stove started. It's a bit of a process because the first thing, you first have to prime it. Sorry, let's keep going uneven. There we go. You need to give it a prime. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the little fuel valve. So fuel is going to start going through the pipeline, and it should begin to pool in about 10 to 15 seconds, pool in a little cup at the bottom of the stove. As soon as you see a little bit of fuel start pooling, you want to close the valve, and then we'll go from there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open it up, and as soon as I see fuel start to pool there, I'm going to close it. It's open. I can hear it doing a little something. All right, I see it starting to pool. I'm going to shut the valve, and then I'm going to light the stove. And what's going to happen is the stove's going to heat up enough where the fuel that is currently a liquid is going to become a gas. It's going to get hot enough. It's going to become the white gas that we generally use. And that creates that orange to blue flame that is so good to cook on. So yeah, we'll light it and we will wait for it to kind of peter out and get hot enough. All right, now we wait. As you can imagine, the windscreen, it just helps protect against the wind, as its name suggests. So it has this little gap right here. Goes right over the fuel line, and then it protects you from the wind. It's not very windy here at the hike house right now, so I'm gonna roll this up. We'll put it away. But it can be a very, very, very handy tool. And we're still watching that flame. It's still going, so our stove is still getting hot enough. All right, so you can see the flame is starting to go out. Now, if you're a pro, which I would never suggest that I am, you can sometimes what they call ghost it. So as the flame starts to go out, it's getting hot enough, I'm not going to be able to. Yep, I missed it. So that's actually better for the sake of demonstration, to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to actually keep the valve off for a second. So now the liquid has gone to a gas. The stove is hot enough. So a properly functioning stove should, when I turn on turn the valve again, I should be able to light the top of the stove, and it should be a hot enough blue flame. Let's see if this stove is working. Again, this is we're in the middle of the summer that with no campers, we haven't been using these, so maybe there's an issue. Maybe this would be a great time to go into a class of how to dissect this. But let's see if this works. So you can kind of hear it hissing. So there's fuel coming through. we light it? Okay, so it went a little up, but now it's starting to go down. So something isn't quite a smooth fuel line. So I'm going to turn the fuel back down low. It's going to peter out, but it's still a blue flame right here, so it's hot. But if we turn it back on, and now it looks hot enough. If it's still a little orange, you can even grab the bottom. Make sure it's not too hot. It's generally not. You can just kind of shake it, clear that pipeline a little bit, and make it. Yep, now you got a pretty strong blue flame. And again, it's never, it rarely is it perfect. Rarely does it go exactly as you want. But you kind of got to fiddle with it. You got to read kind of the mood of the Whisperlite, sort of. It's a little weird. They can be a little finicky. And this is a blue flame, so it's a good blue flame. We could cook on this and boil water. But if you want to get a stronger blue flame, you turn the valve all the way up, and then you can just give it a few pumps. Right? Yeah. There we go. Cool. Awesome. That is how you get a Whisperlite started. Now, before we go, I just want to make sure that we know how to put this out safely. And I want to note, so I'll note a few things. But first, that's a really good flame. That's what you're looking for when you do start a Whisperlite. And to turn it off, you just close the valve. And it will take a minute or two. Not a minute or two. It'll take like 15 to 30 seconds to sort of peter out. And once the flame goes out, you're good to go. However, you should always please remember, just because the flame is out does not mean that it's no longer hot. These remain hot for about 10 to 15 minutes. So, pay attention to that. Do not just go and grab the top of the stove. That will hurt very much. So just always take note of that. But that's it. That's how you turn off the Whisperlite. You will find as you take it apart, you kind of unclip this and you take out the fuel, take apart the fuel bottle. You will find that if you turn the fuel pipeline, if you turn it upside down, some fuel will come out. That's okay. That's pretty normal. There's always going to be a little fuel. It's just better not, you don't want to put that in your backpack and get some white gas all over your clothing. But yeah, that is that's the basics with using a Whisperlite. I hope you guys enjoyed this little time at the Hike House. I'm so happy to be here, at least for a little chunk of time. But yeah, that is how you work with Whisperlite.